Welcome back to the B-Town Breakdown. We have a lot to unpack, NBA edition this episode. This is Gabe and Jayden, and I'm Kelsey Dennehy. Let's get into it. For our first topic of debate, we're going to talk about the Lakers. Can they turn it around? They're 7 out of 10 in losses in their last 10 games, which is obviously not good, so let's hear it.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, the Lakers, they've had a really rough season. Russell Westbrook. Honestly, Russell Westbrook hasn't really had that bad of a season. People just give him crap for what he's doing on the Lakers, but again, it's LeBron James. LeBron James is going to turn it around because honestly, at this point, every team makes the playoffs. So you got the first 10 teams in each conference making the playoffs, right?
Okay.
So Lakers are going to make the play-in, worst case scenario. And then LeBron is playoff LeBron.
Okay.
So that's my take on it.
I'll say to that, I'll say the Lakers have been absolutely horrible.
I do agree with that, though, yes.
Their second star AD is just made out of glass, never touches the court. Or when he comes back from injury, just gets re-injured the next game. The Lakers are the 9 seed right now. They're 27-33. They're 21.5 games back. The Pelicans are a game behind them, and I think they can jump up to the 9 seed, which means if the Lakers are in the play and they need to win 2 games in a row.
Which is going to happen. You think LeBron's going to let them lose?
Listen, LeBron is averaging 29, 8, and 6 right now. There's not a whole
but
lot
AD
more
hasn't
he can
been
do.
playing.
Exactly. How much more?
So if AD comes back and AD stays healthy for a little bit, there's no way.
That's all ifs. Like LeBron is carrying the weight right now, but he's also his defensive capability is not where it used to be.
I think the Lakers will figure it out. I think by now the Lakers will figure it out. If they need to bench Russell Westbrook, then they'll bench Russell Westbrook.
The amount of veterans that they have, you would hope that they could, and the amount of legit talent in the past 10 years that they've had that there is now on their team now, you would hope that they could. They're averaging 14.5 turnovers per game. That is the 3rd worst in the NBA behind the Magic and the Rockets.
Yep.
If you want to group the Lakers, Magic, and Rockets together,
look, I have my
those teams ain't
opinion.
making the playoffs.
I have my opinion on the play-in tournament. I hate it. I don't think that there should be that many teams making the play-in tournament, making the playoffs. But because there are so many teams that make the playoffs, and there's 8 teams that make the play-in tournament, LeBron is not going to let the Lakers lose because they're going to make the play-in tournament. LeBron's not going to let them go below the 10 seed. It's just not going to happen. Yes, the Lakers are not good, but it's LeBron.
Again, they can make it to the play-in tournament. I think the play-in tournament was awesome for the bubble. I think they could have adapted it differently now that it's a regular season again. I don't hate it, the idea. I actually think it's a decent idea. I just like how I dislike parts of the MLB wild card. It makes it part of how it is. It makes it an eventful. That's what part of the game is now.
But LeBron, the MLB wild card. There's only how many teams make the MLB playoffs or MLB postseason? Each team, there's one team from each division, and then they have 2 teams from the best record from each
right,
conference.
and then
but
say one team has won 10 more games than the other. They still have to play that one game.
But the NBA already has so many teams that make the playoffs. They just added more. That's 16 teams already.
It's not making the playoffs. It's determining who's the actual.
No, I'm already saying the 16 teams already make the playoffs. That's
and
original. Then they added in.
Those other 2 teams were great for COVID reasons because people lost games and lost players, which is why it was good for that. But
now you got a clutch game, a clutch one elimination game for the 7 and 8 seed, and 2 elimination game for the 9 and 10 seed. LeBron's one of the most clutch players of all time. He's not going to let that happen. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, you can say it. He is one of the most clutch players of all time. He's also missed clutch shots. Clutch players miss clutch shots.
Everyone plays clutch shots. No one's perfect, but it's LeBron James.
Statistically, he's putting up his average career numbers. 28, 8, and 8. That's what LeBron does. It's just his team is so bad around him
because there's been so many injuries. So if, and that keyword if, Anthony Davis stays healthy for the majority of the remainder of games, then LeBron's not going to let the Lakers lose.
We're going to jump into the Nets and the James Harden trade. So, do you think the Nets can make a push at the top 4 seed when Ben Simmons joins the starting lineup?
Well, let's just start this one.
I personally think yes. Currently, the Nets are the 8 seed, 32-30. They're 8 games behind first, which is very attainable. Important note, they are 12-18 at home, which is one of the worst at-home records in the league. They're 19-13 when they're away. They're still waiting on KD to come back. He's almost day-to-day at this point. Kyrie's going to become a full player in about a week and a half because the
he's
vaccine
not.
mandate is going to be lifted.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be.
It will be.
It won't. It won't. There's actually a lot of news going around that Kyrie will not be able to play at home games.
All right, well, either way, when they're away, 19-13 when Kyrie Irving is playing, proven that they're a better team with Kyrie Irving. KD is still waiting to come back. Ben Simmons with Kyrie and KD is the perfect player to fit alongside them.
All right, I want.
He's the third option. He's not asked to do anything. No one's expecting him to do other than play the best defense in the league, grab a rebound, and get up the court as fast as anyone in the league.
I want to jump in right now. Ben Simmons is one of the most hated NBA players, and
okay,
he's
the perfect
one of
player
the
for the Nets.
lowest confidence right now. But
he doesn't
other
need
than
confidence.
that, Ben Simmons, recent news came out that he is dealing with back injuries.
Yeah.
He can't even, quote unquote, dunk the ball right now.
Kevin Durant
is extremely injury prone. Kyrie Irving is playing half the games.
They're still 32-30 in the 8 seed.
Because they had James Harden on their team who's played majority of the games.
No.
Ever since they released James Harden, it's just been a downhill from there because Kevin Durant's been out.
They've won
Ben
every
Simmons
game.
hasn't played.
They haven't lost since trading James Harden. So I don't know where that came from. KD is the best offensive player ever.
I didn't say he wasn't the best offensive player ever, but he's injured.
When he comes back,
Can we say if
he should have been the MVP this year. If he was a fully healthy all year and the Nets played with a full system, like how they play when they're away with Kyrie, and I have a feeling with this team next year, if they're fully healthy with Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons, I fully believe Ben Simmons is the perfect player in that thing.
He is, and I thought I was on your side with the Nets would make a push in the playoffs and come back to like maybe the 1, 2, or 3 seed. But now that
I don't know
Simmons,
about the 1, 2, or 3. I definitely think the 4 or 5.
But now that Ben Simmons is dealing with a back injury,
But
that's
he
just
hasn't even
killer.
touched the floor for them yet.
He hasn't touched the floor for anyone yet.
So
he's
him
coming
being
back
hurt,
rusty and he's
him
injured.
being hurt doesn't change the way they are at all. Him coming back changes them. So you saying him being hurt doesn't change the way they're playing now. He has never touched the floor for the Nets. So for you to say he's hurt and he's not going to be back, he's not affecting the way they're playing and hasn't affected the way they're playing. So when he comes back, he is the perfect player alongside Kevin Durant.
Okay, who have the Nets played in the past few games that they've been undefeated?
They played the Bucks at home against the Bucks.
Okay, that's a great win. It's a great win. Who else?
I believe they played the Hawks.
Okay, the Hawks are awful this year. You put the Nets right now against the top 3 seeds. You put them against Phoenix. You put them against Miami, Golden State. There's no way that without Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant that they're gonna win. With just Kyrie, there's no way.
Deepest benches in the league. Seth Curry.
It doesn't matter if they're deep
Andre
benches.
Drummond.
Their star players aren't playing.
Blake Griffin. You have to understand when you have the amount of veterans and
Did you say Blake Griffin?
Blake Griffin
is washed.
Okay, he might be washed.
Their starting center is Andre Drummond.
You might not be. They might not be at their peak powers. Their peak powers might have been a couple years ago. When you take 4 or 5 supposedly washed NBA players and they're all serviceable at this point, and you put them on a team.
A team against players who are rising superstars.
Okay, veterans would beat superstars at times.
Yeah, veterans who are still playing well. Not Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin has like 5 points a game.
Clearly,
if you would say that's washed, then I don't know what you're saying. Blake Griffin.
I mean, Blake Griffin does what the Nets need. They're not asking him to be a Clippers Blake Griffin. They're not asking him to be a Detroit Pistons Blake Griffin.
But what Blake Griffin is doing is not going to be enough to help the Nets get.
Again, he's not asked to be a superstar. He's asked to play his role.
But without Blake Griffin,
good
who's the superstar? There's no Kevin Durant.
You don't need a superstar sometimes. Sometimes you don't need a superstar.
Who's the best player on the team right now at home?
It doesn't matter.
What do you mean it doesn't matter?
Kevin Durant's coming back.
Coming back.
Okay, they can win a game without the superstars. You don't think that's possible?
No.
You're wrong. You're just wrong.
So you're saying a bunch of
the Pacers,
average to below average players are going to be...
You think the Pacers have a superstar?
Pacers suck!
Have they won games without a superstar?
Bro.
Point proven. Thank you. Next.
No.
Thank you.
No,
next.
no, I'm not.
Okay, give your final point, and then we've got to move on.
All right. What was your take about the Pacers, real quick?
The Pacers haven't had a superstar since Paul George, I would say.
Okay, we're talking. You don't need a superstar, but at least have an all-star. There's no all-stars on Brooklyn without Kyrie, Ben Simmons, or Kevin Durant.
Those players are.
Domantas Sabonis is an all-star.
He's not on the Pacers.
I'm talking about before. Domantas Sabonis is an all-star. Malcolm Brogdon is almost an all-star. Miles Turner is a threat.
Seth Curry is a threat.
No. Seth Curry is a threat, but you need to set Seth Curry up. You need to set Seth Curry.
Seth Curry is a
Who's going to set up Seth Curry?
Patty Mills is a threat.
Bruce Brown going to set up
Bruce
Seth
Brown
Curry?
is one of the best role players in the league.
There's no way Bruce Brown
is one of the best role players in the league. Plays his
role players. He's starting now.
He's a role player. Role players are needed in the NBA. They play their role, and they do what they're needed to do.
Bench and bring firepower.
You don't need a superstar. Role players can start. Role players are allowed to start. Duncan Robinson is a role player.
Duncan Robinson is not a role player. He's a starter.
Starters can be role players. Role players don't need to come off the bench.
Okay, but when you're matching up against all-stars and superstars, the role players aren't going to do anything.
Thank you, next. Role players can't be starters in the
NBA.
You didn't prove your point. You didn't prove your point.
Neither did you. So.
Neither did you. You didn't say a word.
Well, it's not my point
You're
to
just
make.
sitting there looking at us.
All right. What was that about, man?
That's my first.
Bro, she's a role player. She's playing her role perfectly.
She's not starting.
That's my job.
She does start, and she's a role player.
Anywho.
Thank you, next.
Sorry, you're being very loud. You're at a boil, bring it down to a simmer, please.
You just be quiet. We are going to toss it over to our Are You Even a Fan reporter, Zach Green, who took to the streets to find out who our true Hoosier fans are. So, without further ado, are you even a fan?
We're going to win tonight. We'll get payback tonight. Payback. We're going to win tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, what about his foot fetish?
Does that point to the odds?
Hammering the money line for IU. I mean, my buddy put $1,000 on. I'll pull up the bet slip. IU all the way.
And against Purdue. Can he do it against Indiana? Yes! Ron Harper Jr.
From New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm from Jersey.
Ben Simmons is playing tonight. Star player for the Rutgers basketball team. We're going to clamp him up.
I don't think he plays for Rutgers.
He doesn't? We got Joel Embiid on the Rutgers team. He's the top scoring all time for Rutgers.
Okay.
Big man, 7 foot. He can
Okay.
shoot. You think we're going to clamp him up?
I absolutely do.
Okay. Charles Barkley, who used to play here, but he was unvaccinated. And now that the mask mandate's getting lifted, he's going to be able to play on Saturday against Purdue.
Okay.
He's our star player. Do you think we're going to beat them?
Thanks, Zach. Okay, so our last question, last debate of the day. Is Stephen Curry the best point guard ever? And is he a top 10 all-time player?
Stephen Curry is a top 10 player, but he is not the best point guard of all time. He's the best player to have the point guard position next to his name. Let me explain. You think of a point guard. What is the point guard's job on a court? Point guard's job on the court is to
I know where you're going.
Start with the ball. Start with the ball. Run the offense. Get the offense going. Pass first. Find your open players. So does Steph Curry do that? No, Steph Curry doesn't do that. Steph Curry gets his own shot created. The best point guard of all time is Magic Johnson. Because Magic Johnson averages 12 assists in his whole career. Stephen Curry has 6 assists his whole career. So yes, Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time. He's the best player to play the point guard position. But when you think of a point guard, Steph Curry is not the best point guard.
Okay. He argued for me, basically. Steph Curry is the best point guard ever. He doesn't fit definitional mold of what a point guard
Which
should
makes
do.
him not the best point guard. He is the best player to be. If you put him at shooting guard, he'd be the best shooting guard of all time. But he's not the best point guard.
No.
Because a point guard's job.
He wouldn't be the best shooting guard of all time.
Who would be? Oh, Michael Jordan.
Okay, so Stephen Curry, he changed the way basketball is played. It's just a proven fact. Magic Johnson played in the 80s. The definition of a point guard has changed drastically from the 80s to the 2020s.
I'll put Chris Paul in front of Steph Curry, a better point guard.
All right, Chris Paul is my favorite player of all time. I think he's a top 5 point guard of all time.
He's number 2 at point guard of all time for me.
Dude, he's not better than Stephen Curry.
He's not a better player than Stephen Curry. He's a better point guard.
If you think the definition of a point guard is a team leader runs LeBron would be a better definition of a point guard.
LeBron is a point guard.
No, dude.
LeBron is a point guard.
No, he's not.
He is.
You're bugging.
He's not.
Bro.
Look up anywhere. Look up LeBron as a point guard.
Okay. I don't even when you're so deep in your delusional thoughts, you can't even
I'm not delusional. You're confused and you think that yours are right because you're trying to take it out on me because you know you're wrong.
I'm not. I'm just.
No, you know you're wrong, so you're just trying to put it on me.
No,
you're not trying to make me look bad, even though
I understand that your definition of a point guard. You're not understanding my definition of a point guard doesn't have to fit your mold.
I understand why you think he's the best point guard, but he's not.
But he is. Your mold of a point guard isn't the mold of a point guard anymore. Chris Paul might be the only, one of the only traditional point guards still in the NBA today. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay, so the definition of and the mold of a point guard has changed because of Stephen Curry.
But it shouldn't have changed. And
okay, it shouldn't have.
Guard,
but it did. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It did.
The point guard definition still stands. It's always going to be that way.
Maybe in middle school. It's the NBA, dude. Anyone can handle the ball. Anyone can pass the ball.
What are you bringing up? What does middle school do anything with the NBA?
Because the way your mold is fitting is the point guard carries the ball, passes the ball, sets up the offense.
Yeah, he does.
In the NBA, anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. Your definition of a molded point guard doesn't matter anymore.
The NBA now up the court.
The NBA nowadays is a positionless game, and that's proven over the last 5 years.
Then why are you even saying Steph Curry's the best point guard of all time if it's a positionless game?
Because
just be a player of all time.
Players can fit different positions.
It's a positionless game. You just said.
Again, you're repeating what I'm saying.
No, you just said it's a positionless game. So why are you putting people in positions?
Thank you, Kelsey.
What did Kelsey do?
I can't argue that.
Thank you. Look at that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, why?
He thinks he did something.
You just said you can't argue that.
Because you're saying
this
things
debate
that
has
aren't
been settled.
It hasn't.
Thank you.
It hasn't. Positionless basketball in the NBA is Giannis can play the 3 through 5.
Okay.
But he's still listed as a power forward. Is he not?
He is.
Okay.
So what is Steph Curry listed as?
A point guard.
Which makes him the best player to play the point guard position. But it's a positionless game. You just said it. So how can he be the best point guard of all time?
Because he plays the point guard
position. Thank you. He's the best player to play the point guard position.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're going.
I think we're done here.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you confused your argument a little bit.
I think you're confused. I think you're hornswoggled right now.
Okay.
I think you're being boozled.
Well, that's all the time we have.
I think we should settle this after.
Okay. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the V-Town Breakdown. Make sure you follow at IUSTV Sports on Instagram and Twitter for all of your sports needs. For Gabe Fenster, Jayden Vetron, and myself, I'm Kelsey Dennehy. We'll see you next week.